You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined as always by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Got the college national championship set up for 6 days from now. So IU and Miami. IU and Miami playing in Miami for the national championship. So that was entertaining football to watch. We had wild card weekend. Most of those games were actually really entertaining for one reason or another, but they were competitive. So I was happy about that. We got some more coaches going around the carousel, but it was a good weekend, man. I watched some good playoff football and got to hang out with the family a little bit. And now we're back to the 5-day grind before we get some more relief this coming weekend.
Right. Yeah, no, it was interesting too, right? The games this weekend on the NFL side of things, like all of them were highly competitive with the exception of like one, right? Like it was rather interesting to see how many of those games came down to no lead was safe. Nothing was really, settled until the clock hit zero on that. Because I believe going into into that Sunday night game, the vast majority of those contests, whoever had been leading it with 3 minutes left to go in the game had lost several of those. So it was very interesting to see how some of that played out, and we'll get some games going on Saturday, some more on Sunday, and there should be some good matchups here and some interesting ones here coming down the pike. But anything that really kind of stood out to you in the wild card weekend?
I guess a couple things that probably really stood out is number one, the Chargers offensive line and just the injuries, right, that they came across with the offensive line. It finally took its toll as that game was close because their defense played really, really, really good. But it really wasn't that close because I don't know that you ever felt like Herbert could stay upright long enough to put a drive together and make that a tightly contested game. So their offensive line definitely let them down. Do the Carolina Panthers, here's another one. Do the Carolina Panthers just need to play the LA Rams every week and then we feel completely different about said Carolina Panthers?
Right. That was insane.
Yeah, like Bryce Young didn't have a terrible game. Like he wasn't all pro, but he didn't have a terrible game. It was back and forth. The game script was fairly similar to what it was back in week 13 when they played each other. The only difference was that the Rams converted on their final drive and got the touchdown as opposed to not converting on 4th down in week 13, and the Panthers came out with a win. But that game was extremely entertaining and a great way to kick off wild card weekend. My only hope is that Matthew Stafford's finger doesn't give him any issues going forward in the playoffs, because he's been playing well, but I just, potential MVP, but I'd hate to see finger issue derail. It'd be a really special playoff run for the Rams. So
right.
I think, what else do I think out of this weekend? I think the Jags, as good as their run getting into the playoffs were, I think they maybe realized that they weren't quite ready for that next step. Buffalo knew what they had to do. They've been in that situation before, and they knew how to handle their business and went out and did that. Pretty good game overall still, right? Back and forth, especially in the fourth quarter. What was it? 4 lead changes in the final
Right.
8 minutes of that game, something like that.
Right.
So
I don't
that was
know though
fun.
if you're Jacksonville, why you only have Travis Etienne run the ball 10 times when he's getting 6.5 yards a clip, right? Tootin was getting 12 yards a clip. Like, and Buffalo had shown all season that you want to beat them, run the ball, right? And that makes it real easy to kind of do that because they'd stifled the Bills running game, right? James Cook was getting just over 3 yards a carry. Josh Allen was only getting about 3 yards a carry. Like, it was going to come down to Josh Allen having to beat you with your right arm or with his right arm. And the best way to beat that or mitigate that is just keep him off the field. And so that was very surprising to me that they just didn't run the ball a whole lot more in that game.
Yeah, I think they missed their opportunity, and that was one thing I felt like they did pretty well down the stretch. Right, they stayed pretty balanced. They were efficient in the run game, and while they were efficient, I think this is the issue or the potential low hanging fruit knock against Trevor Lawrence. Right, like you just can't give him too much. And yes, he did settle in and was, for all intents and purposes, QB1 for the final third of the regular season. The playoffs are a bit different game, and you can't just fall in love with your passing game. You got to be able to run the ball. And the Jags could, they just chose not to. So I'd agree. That was more questions than answers there. But nevertheless, we'll see how it holds up. We'll see if Denver has a different game plan coming in, because Buffalo is probably the team that I didn't want to see, just because the Broncos aren't necessarily a great running team. They're an okay running team. And so I hope Sean Payton has a good game plan put together to keep Josh Allen off the field and limit his possessions. You got to shorten the game.
Right. No, that was one that I was hoping in the Sunday night game that the Chargers had pulled the upset, and we got to see the Chargers again, but was not the case. And I'm gonna lie, Buffalo nor the Texans were two teams that I would have been overly thrilled having to kick off against the divisional round against. But it is what it is, and we'll see what happens on Saturday here. Eagles 49ers, they played a good game in that. Eagles, they had plenty of turnovers though. And George Kittle also going down. We'll see what the Niners are able to do without him down the stretch here, and what that kind of recovery and time frame looks like for him coming back.
Yeah, another torn Achilles. And not necessarily another one for George Kittle, but just another one in general. I feel like we've seen this injury pop up more and more here the last couple seasons, and it's unfortunate. I'm not sure what necessarily is the cause of it. I'm not a sports and exercise science major, so I can't technically speak to it. It's just visually, everybody kind of sees the cues now, right? Like you see where the camera is, you can see it shoot up the calf, and you see that pop, and the player's instantly lifting a leg and falling down. It's just a terrible injury. So, I hope speedy recovery for all of them, but definitely unfortunate. And the Niners just continue to find a way, right? Like, this is is it the coaching genius of Kyle Shanahan? Like, he just finds enough ways to get his guys into the right play once or twice. That trick play, where Juwan Jennings threw the ball to Christian McCaffrey was perfectly timed. Perfect pass too. Like, he threw a dot. So that was super interesting. And the Eagles just fell apart at the seams. Coincidentally, they fired their offensive coordinator. I was watching a TikTok reel, and they're interviewing a kid. And I don't know, I'd probably tell you the kid was 13 years old. And you tell he's a big football fan, but he referenced Kevin Petula, their offensive coordinator, said he needs to go flip burgers somewhere because that's what he's good at. And the person interviewing him didn't quite understand, like, flipping burgers, like what do you mean? He goes, well, because one side you're cooking and the other side you're raw. And then the interviewer kind of chuckled a little bit, and I was like, man, that's a great analogy coming from a kid. Like, a great analogy coming from a kid. And coincidentally, Petula was relieved of his position here today, so Jalen Hurts will have his 11th straight season of a different offensive coordinator.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
That's crazy. We probably don't give him enough credit for that, right?
No.
Like, we use it as a crutch and as an excuse sometimes, whether Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, some of these other guys who've kind of developed a little bit slower, maybe a little bit differently than how we anticipated. But Jalen Hurts just is kind of the consummate pro. He doesn't say a whole bunch about it, but 11 consecutive changes at offensive coordinator, and he still just goes out and finds a way to try
get the job done. Yeah.
So AJ Brown, I feel that experiment might be over, Derek. Like, and I know that they still owe him a bag, and it's going to be hard to move him, but it does make you wonder if the Eagles could get somewhat of a reasonable compensation package for AJ Brown, if they would ship him off to someone in the AFC and try and just start over, run it with Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert, and bring in a new young wide receiver opposite of Devonta Smith and see what you can do, because AJ Brown and his theatrics this year, you could tell it was wearing really thin on the Eagles sideline.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how those kind of played out there. It'll be interesting to see too here what the Ravens or what the Eagles do here in the offseason. But there's a lot of that's we typically talk about coaching carousel and that kind of things at this point of the year and what that looks like, and we'll get to that in a minute. But before we do, any kind of thoughts around some of the divisional rounds that we want to hit up here before we start diving into the coaching carousel?
I guess so. I'll start in the NFC with Seattle and the 49ers. And this is probably the worst draw San Francisco could have gotten, in my opinion, right? Like, they just got demolished, and it was a butt kicking a couple weeks ago in Seattle to finish out the regular season. They're going right back up there now without George Kittle. It'll be interesting to see what they're able to put together and what they learned. Now, Kyle Shanahan is a very good game caller, right? Like, he is good at that. I think that they will find more success than what they had the final week of the regular season, but I don't think it's going to be enough. So I think Seattle's moving on. And then the really good game, I think, is going to be the Rams and Bears.
Right.
The Rams have had issues with receivers deep lately, and the Bears have not only a couple of receivers but a tight end too who can get deep. So I think that game, even though it's going to be in Chicago and it's supposed to be blistering cold, I think you're going to see more of a passing game approach from both these teams than you are the running game, both by nature and just by the fact that Caleb's not afraid to air it out, and it's the Rams' weakness, and the Rams can't stick with the running game for whatever reason. Like, they choose not to, and it doesn't matter whether Kyron Williams or Blake Corum's averaging 5-6 yards a carry or not. They didn't do that against the Panthers, so I'm not necessarily saying that they abandoned it in the Carolina game, but just down the stretch, it was very hot and cold, the running game. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I think that might be that might be the high scoring game of the weekend, just
Right.
because both teams offensively can get it done, and there's probably the most amount of questions for both defenses in one way or another.
Right.
Sans, I'll say with the exception of San Francisco because of the injuries.
Right. But I do think that LA Chicago game is probably going to be kind of come down to whoever has the ball last. Like that one seems like it's going to be really close, and I think you're right. It'll be kind of more of a track meet, kind of just up and down the field constantly. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out, and I think we're going to be getting a good game to finish off the divisional round there. Any other thoughts on the NFC, or should we head over to the AFC?
No, I think that's about it for the NFC here right now. Wait and
Awesome.
see what we get from Stafford's hand injury if we get any more updates, but we're not going to get that today.
Right. And on the AFC side of things, right? Like you've got two really good matchups, I think, right? The Texans and the Patriots. I think that one's going to be a really good matchup there, and you're going to see a couple of teams really try and grind that out. Same thing with the Broncos and the Bills, right? It's going to come down to, how do the Broncos, keep the keep the ball running or keep the ball moving on the ground and really try and establish a run game against the Bills, and you kind of mitigate Josh Allen from being able to do Josh Allen type of things.
Yeah. I think for the Patriots, it's limiting turnovers, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the Patriots don't turn the ball over, I think the Patriots win that game, and it probably looks a little bit more comfortable than what it is if they don't have turnovers. But if Houston's able to get a Ramondre fumble or a Drake May interception or something like that, I do think that Houston can stay around really late in this game. I'm not expecting a whole bunch of points. I think I would be shocked if that game was anything higher than like 23-20. And that's a lot of scores for a game like that. But I'm thinking, maybe a short field, maybe you do get a turnover or something like that. Because I think New England's good enough defensively to limit Houston offensively. And Houston right now, with statistically the best defense in the NFL, defense travels. Right, it just doesn't matter, and D'Amico Ryans has that defense absolutely believing in themselves right now, and they have a really good pass rush to help get after Drake May, and we're going to figure out if the Patriots were a product of their strength of schedule, or if they've really made this much of an improvement in 1 year.
Right.
So we'll definitely understand some things about that. And then for the Denver game, like we've been saying, Denver's got to run the ball. You got to run the ball. So if you can do that, the Bills offense has been kind of clunky at times. James Cook has been less explosive the last 5 weeks or so, maybe 4 weeks, than what he was kind of leading up to that. So if you can limit the big plays, we've seen what can happen here. Shorten the game, see how the Broncos shake out there at home. I think that's a big help for them. But nevertheless, you gotta limit the big plays, and you gotta find a way to keep your offense on the field, because the more opportunities you give Josh Allen, the more you set yourself up for danger. So cheeky answer, but it's going to be Allen's legs, I think. Right? Like if you can limit his running, Denver stands a really good chance. But if Josh Allen's continuously breaking loose and extending plays or extending drives, I think you're going to have a kind of a long day there in Denver. So good, entertaining game it should be. But I don't know. I don't have the warm and fuzzies as a Bronco fan. I wish I did, but I just don't. But that's why they play the games. We're gonna see how they shake out.
Absolutely. Well, Grayson chiming in over on YouTube saying that this is going to be a great game. Grayson is a Bills fan. But yeah, it'll be a good game, and hopefully it'll be a good game. And I think we'll get a lot of really good matchups here. Really good kind of football played out throughout this divisional round. Nothing on the paper just kind of screams, "Oh my gosh, what are these two being matched up for?" Because it could very well turn ugly, right? There's nothing that kind of stands out and screams that immediately. So I think we're going to be in for some good football this weekend, and hopefully that plays out that way. Any other thoughts here before we move on over to the coaching carousel?
No,
All
no.
right.
Let's spin away.
All right, awesome. So since we last talked, right, the news broke on Mike Tomlin stepping down today. You mentioned the offensive coordinator for the Eagles being let go. Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator for the Chargers, being let go today. Mike McDaniels was let go last week after we talked on Tuesday. So, but any other news notes that you're seeing there, or any kind of thoughts here on the coaching carousel?
So, Thursday is kind of a weird. It was a weird day that Mike McDaniel got let go, right? And I did bring up on the show last week that I didn't think it was done. I guess I just wasn't expecting it being Thursday for whatever reason. It just struck me as a very odd day to let go of your head coach. But coincidentally, he got let go, and then instantly the Lions are on the horn trying to get him to come up to Detroit and be the OC for that team. So we're talking pre-show, right? Like that could be scary.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think that Mike McDaniels has a good offensive line. I just think I don't think he's a great head coach. And if you can put him on one side of the ball, his strength, and have him just focus on that, I think you could do some really electrifying things in Detroit where they play in a dome for half the season at least. And you have speed and playmakers all over the field for him. So that could be entertaining. Tomlin stepping down. We talked about this a little bit too. I know that there are a lot of people kind of calling for that and just kind of rinse and repeat, right? The Steelers have been kind of the same team for the last 8 years, basically, right? Like you're good enough to get to the dance, but once you get to the dance, you're just kind of outgunned. And so I thought it was a real class act by the Steelers that, they let Daniel, or they, why do I keep doing this? They let Mike Tomlin control that narrative, right? They allowed him to address the team. They allowed him to step down in the utmost grace and humility possible. And I don't know that I would expect anything less from the Steelers. Say what you will about the fan base. At times they're a little obnoxious, but I think that's probably just Pittsburgh, or not Pittsburgh, Phil, or Pennsylvania in general, because Eagles fans are quite obnoxious too. But nevertheless, they handled it that way. If Tomlin wants to coach, he's going to be able to pick whatever group he wants, right? Whatever squad he wants. If Tomlin's wanting to coach, he'll absolutely be able to coach, whoever and wherever he would like. I think it's going to be interesting to see what teams do if, you have Tomlin or Harbaugh, right? If you're down between those two choices, like what direction teams kind of lean and see where that goes. But I expect Tomlin to have at least a million invitations for an interview as he could shake a stick at. But he'll land on his feet. I like Mike Tomlin. I really do. I think he's very underrated. I think that his ability to manage a locker room and keep the stuff in-house is arguably the best in the NFL. Belichick might have done it slightly better, just the Patriot way thing and kind of how that got hammered into everybody. But Belichick also had a Hall of Fame greatest of all time type quarterback to help control that narrative.
Right.
Tomlin did it with, Hall of Fame type quarterbacks. Yes. Ben Roethlisberger, this season Aaron Rodgers, but I mean, he won games with Duck Hodges. Like he won games with Justin Fields. He won games with
Mason
Mason
Rudolph.
Rudolph.
Yeah.
He won games with Kenny Pickett. Like Mike Tomlin won games with quarterbacks that some of these guys have no business being starting quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah. Or
So,
franchise guys, things like that. But
yeah,
you're right.
absolutely.
You're right. You've seen these guys go on other organizations and struggle to try and win games, right? But
Yeah, you can't name many Steelers who have left the Steelers and done better after they left.
No. Well, and you mentioned as well just the ability to keep things in house. Like it was amazing to some of the names that came through there. They leave, they go to other organizations, and things just kind of come out that become a like, how did that not get out their entire time they were in Pittsburgh, right? And then they make other stops later on, and it's still like similar narratives coming out. So very interesting to just see how well they were able to keep things in house and control the narrative of of their locker room.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of running through name-worthy players who've left Pittsburgh and not just completely bombed out. And I think Minkah Fitzpatrick is the only one that I really have coming to mind. And then now he's back with Pittsburgh. But I mean, he was never a problem in Miami, right? Like it was never that Minkah wasn't doing his job or was acting out and everything else. It was, he just found his way back to Pittsburgh via the trade. But yeah, I mean, Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell both turned into head cases while in Pittsburgh, but he just did such a good job you never noticed until they left. And then you're going, holy smokes.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting to see how that comes to pass there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, right? Like, and you mentioned earlier that if you've got if you're an organization, you're kind of trying to settle between like a Harbaugh or a Tomlin. If you're trying to bring that in that case probably leans more on the Harbaugh side of things, simply from the standpoint that the Steelers would still hold the coaching rights, the contract rights to Tomlin, and it would take some compensation to be able to give that away. Very similar to what the Saints did with Sean Payton a few years ago, right? He steps away from the game, goes and does like the TV thing, comes back. They still got the contract rights, and it takes a trade to happen to go through, and was 2 draft picks, including a first rounder that Denver had to send over to be able to hire Sean Payton as their head coach. So I would imagine something similar, and a similar asking price, if not a higher asking price.
Yeah, that would be interesting because I didn't even think about that until you just said it.
So yeah, there's 9 coaching vacancies, which almost a third of the league coaching vacancies available. So it'll be interesting to see how this thing plays out and comes to pass, and the chess pieces and all of that and the the kind of the carousel and how these guys get maneuvered around here. But it'll also be interesting to see now too, with some of these teams being eliminated, some of these coordinators start getting in the mix for these coaching interviews and all of that as well. So I think it'll be interesting to see here over the next week or two to see some of the news that starts circling out. And ultimately, I think it'll take 1 or 2 of the dominoes falling for the rest of them to start falling in line as well.
So I just pulled up the Tomlin contract just since we were talking about it. And so he's under contract through 2026 with a team option for 2027.
Mm-hmm.
His contract also has a no trade clause.
Yeah, but they can waive that.
Yeah. I mean, everybody can waive that if that's what he's wanting to do. It'll be interesting. See what the Steelers want to do, right? Like, if it was truly, because Sean Payton stepped away, and I don't know that the Saints really wanted him to step away. If it was truly amicable with the Steelers and Tomlin, it will be interesting to see how long they hold those rights. Or
Like,
if they decide, you know what, we're just going to hold on to it. You said you want to go do other ventures. We're going to allow those other ventures, but it's not going to be on a sideline. Right? It's TV deals. It's, that type of thing. Broadcasting, sitting in a booth, like whatever you want to do, and hold teams to it unless they want to, like you said, bust out the draft picks and financial compensation and all that good stuff to get them over.
Right. Now, I think it would be interesting to see, because I do believe that that with the contracts there as well, that it doesn't necessarily go through a year, right? Like if it's if they leave it, or and kind of do almost a retirement type of thing, or they step away from that, they it still requires basically finishing that out in years of service for that to come back through. So I'd have to do some more research on that to see how that plays out. So one of those
Happy how they file it with the league too,
Yeah.
right? Like if the Steelers choose to, okay, like we're just going to continue to pay him. And so that way they hold those rights, or if they can put a pause on it, or if they can just say, okay, here's what we're going to do to kind of make it null and void.
Right. Yeah. Cause I know with like Gronk, when he retired from the Patriots, right, for him to go to Tampa, he had to return and have a trade happen for that to go through, even though he had retired and all of that. The Patriots still had his the rights to his contract. So I'd have to really kind of dive into that and see what that looks like and how that kind of plays out there. So be interesting to see how that plays out. But any other thoughts on this particular topic?
No, sir.
All right, awesome. Any other news notes? Any other thoughts you want to hit up on the coaching carousel?
No, I don't think so. I think, you kind of get bits and pieces here and there of what teams are doing. I think you're going to see a lot of traction going into Pro Bowl weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Just with that being the week off where teams can interview coordinators of your Super Bowl contending teams, and then you have basically 30 out of the 32 teams are full free reign, and then the last two teams, they get that Pro Bowl week to kind of interview and do whatever. So I think we'll get a lot of traction here in 2 weeks, but definitely something that every time my phone dings, I am looking at. I'm like, okay, now who's talking to who? Like, what's going to go on here? What's the first domino? Who's going to be the team that puts it together and say, okay, this is our guy, and they're just going to go after him right away.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out, and just like most years, it seems to be that takes that very first domino to fall to have the rest of them start kind of falling in line there. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out here, and it should be worth keeping an eye on here over the next couple of weeks. Before we call it a night, though, we do have a guess the player for 2025 based off of some clues for fantasy production. And with this one, you've got 5 clues to guess the player. Let me know when you're ready, and I'll set the stage.
All right, go for it.
Here we go. So this one, these are not clues here, but it'll be a wide receiver position. They did finish inside the top 24 at the position in half-point PPR scoring. Actually, I guess that would be the very first clue there. Is it's a wide receiver finished the 2025 season as a top 24 wide receiver in half-point PPR, and this outperformed their preseason average draft position. So that'd be clue 1. Any guesses you want to take, or ready for clue 2?
Outperformed their preseason. Parker Washington.
It is not Parker Washington.
Okay.
Your next clue is they ranked top 20 in targets per game, serving as a consistent focal point in their team's passing offense. They averaged just under 10 targets a game.
George Pickens.
was not George Pickens. I like the guess, though. Definitely would fit clues 1 and 2. Clue number 3. Despite not reaching 10 touchdowns, this player maintained fantasy value throughout their reliable weekly volume. Any guesses are ready for clue 4?
No, next. Sorry, I'm processing. Next.
No worries. Clue number 4. They played on a team that finished inside the top 10 for pass attempts averaged per game.
Top 10 pass attempts per game. Top 24. Okay, next.
All right, clue number 5. This receiver recorded multiple 100-yard games in 2025 and became a trusted wide receiver 2/flex option for fantasy managers during the playoff weeks, with a touchdown scored in each week of the fantasy playoffs.
Well, hey, that should be a big clue.
And actually, I'll amend that to say at least a touchdown scored in each week of the fantasy playoffs.
At least a touchdown scored in each week of the fantasy playoffs. DJ Moore. No, it's not DJ Moore. He was terrible the first half of the season.
Yes.
Can't be DJ Moore.
Yes, and DJ Moore finished at wide receiver 32, so he would not fit the top 24 narrative.
No. Okay, so
I have one bonus clue for you as a final clue if you're ready.
Okay.
So you mentioned George Pickens earlier. This player had more targets than George Pickens on the fantasy season.
Okay. Man, like I know who it's. I can list a bunch of players who I know it's not, right? Like just based off of the team volume. Like it's not JSN. It's not anyone. I don't think it's any one of the Chargers receivers because none of them were consistent enough. It wasn't a Raider.
It's not a Raider.
Nope. It wasn't a 49er.
Nope.
It wasn't a Ram because Adams was hurt with the hamstring, so it couldn't have been him. It wasn't a Buccaneer.
Nope.
Is it Ted McMillan?
It is not Ted McMillan. Here's your final bonus clue on this.
Final bonus clue. Okay.
So clue 7. They are in the same division as Ted McMillan.
Is it Olave?
It is Chris Olave.
Okay.
So Chris Olave on
Makes sense.
So Chris Olave last year, right, finished as wide receiver number 6 overall. So fitting clue 1. He actually in a per target basis was ranked inside the top 10 with averaging just under 10 targets per game. Had 9 touchdowns, so he didn't quite reach the 10 touchdown mark, but at wide receiver 6 was fantasy gold for you. And the Saints last year were with over 33 pass attempts per game, were inside the top 10 for most pass attempts by a team. And Chris Olave had several 100-yard games week in, week out. And when looking at that, he had at least 3 different top 10 games, or 3 different 100+ yard games, and scored touchdowns in week 15, 2 touchdowns week 16, and a touchdown in week 17.
Oh, Chris Olave.
Right. So just a little fun there, and we'll have some more of those as we continue through the off season there. But Definitely kind of
Stayed healthy.
right. And even with a lot of question marks at the quarterback, right? Like those were the two knocks coming in on him was could he stay healthy, and what was the quarterback situation was not going to be a great one. And it didn't matter this year, right? Wide receiver 6, and if you drafted him way down the board, you were happy with that one.
Absolutely.
So, all righty. Well, I do believe that that's going to take us to the end of it. Any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
Enjoy the divisional round. 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday, national championship game the following Monday. So we got 3 really good days of football until we meet again. So we'll see how those shake out. Yeah, other than that, everybody have a good week. Be safe.
Absolutely. And that's going to do it for us tonight. Make sure you're hitting that like, subscribe button wherever you're listening to this at. Do appreciate everybody tuning in, chiming in. That's going to do it for us tonight. We'll be back again next Tuesday, 11 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you hit that little bell notification, get those notifications when we go live. But that's going to do it for us tonight. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos.